Welcome to the deep dive. We're here to uh, really pull out the core ideas from interesting sources for you.
And save you some time along the way.
Exactly. Today, we're diving into Ed Parker's infinite insights into Kenpo mental stimulation.
Volume 1 of a pretty hefty 5-volume set.
Right. Copyrighted 82 by Edmund K. Parker, printed here in the U.S. Think of this as your focus path to understanding the basics of American Kenpo.
We're aiming for those key insights, those aha moments, without you having to wade through everything.
We know you, the learner, want knowledge quickly, thoroughly, but you definitely want to avoid that feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yeah, nobody's got time for that. So we've sort of tailored this for exactly that efficient insight.
Okay, so our mission for this volume, we're really looking to unpack the core principles and, well, the mental side of American Kenpo, just like the title says.
All based on how Ed Parker laid it out. We want to highlight those surprising connections and the really practical takeaways.
So looking at the contents, Parker covers a lot of ground.
He really does. We'll touch on the history where American Kenpo actually came from, how it evolved.
And its relationship to other martial arts, right?
Right.
Maybe how it connects to just daily life.
Yeah, that part's interesting. Plus the ingredients for learning, the stages you go through, the philosophy behind it.
Even things like formalities, rituals, and just how to start thinking about preparation.
And there's a creed in there and a glossary too, which we might pull from.
Okay, let's jump right in with that creed. It really sets a tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ed Parker wrote it way back in March 1957.
It does, and it really captures a core philosophy. It goes, I come to you with only karate, empty hands.
Empty hands.
I have no weapons, but should I be forced to defend myself, my principles or my honor, should it be a matter of life or death, of right or wrong, then here are my weapons, karate, my empty hands.
Wow. That's quite a statement. Starting unarmed, empty hands.
But immediately saying, look, principles and honor are paramount. They're worth defending even. Well, even if it's life or death.
And karate itself becomes the weapon, but only as a last resort.
Exactly. Not just for physical defense, but for upholding justice, for what's right. The book points out this creed is meant to be like a moral compass.
Shaping your attitude, your beliefs.
And hopefully fostering a keen sense of justice. So maybe the first big takeaway is Kenpo isn't just fighting techniques.
No, it's tied intrinsically to an ethical code.
Right from the start.
Okay, building on that ethical foundation, let's look at the history. The book does warn us, tracing martial arts history is, well, it's tough.
Yeah, records get destroyed, or they're just ambiguous, so pinning down exact origins is challenging.
But the traditional view points towards India and China.
Mostly, yeah. Though Parker notes some historians even debate the Chinese origin. But a key figure mentioned is Tamo, or Bodhidharma.
Ah, Bodhidharma, around 527 AD. Right, Shaolin Monastery.
That's the one. He's credited with introducing exercises, maybe initially just for health for the monks.
But they had defensive applications built in, sort of.
Seems like it. The thinking is they were precursors to Shaolin boxing, though the book's careful it doesn't say Tamo himself, systematized it into a martial art.
So maybe an insight there is that things developed for one reason, like health, can have other valuable uses like self-defense.
That's a good point. Then fast forward a bit in history. The text mentions Yuan Fei, or Yu Fei, Sung Dynasty, so 960 to 1279 AD.
Another Chinese contributor.
Yeah, he developed movements specifically for body toughening. Started with 18 hand movements. Apparently his followers expanded it to 72.
So we see this pattern, foundational stuff gets built upon, evolves over time.
Definitely. And these influences, whether perfectly documented or more legendary, seem to have traveled. Okinawa is highlighted as really important here.
Influenced by winds, currents, travelers. The book mentions the Tang Deming dynasty period as being key for that exchange.
Right, 618 AD up to around 1368 AD. And what's really interesting is how politics shaped things. Weapon bans in Okinawa.
Like the one by the Japanese feudal lord Shimazu.
Exactly. That forced people to practice empty-hand fighting in secret. They had to develop it because other options were restricted.
Necessity is the mother of invention, even in martial arts.
Pretty much. And the book even shows an image, I-13, of that ban. It really drives home how external pressures can spur development.
It's amazing, isn't it? A restriction leads to this flourishing art form, and the influence spread further.
Yeah, briefly mentions Chinese arts going to Korea too, influencing things like Taekwondo. There's this whole web of connections.
Okay, so bringing it closer to American Kenpo specifically, James Masayoshi Maitose.
Right. Born 1916, died 1981. His lineage is traced back to Tamo and Shirinji-ryu Kenpo.
Shirinji, that's Japanese mixing, striking, and grappling, right?
Correct. So Maitose had that background. But interestingly, when he started teaching in Hawaii, he apparently put a lot of emphasis on jujitsu.
So Kenpo roots, but a jujitsu flavor in his early U.S. teaching. Then comes William K.S. Chow.
A student of Maitose, and really seen as instrumental in developing what became American Kenpo.
How so? What did Chow bring to it?
Well, he started adapting Maitose's teachings, modernizing them. The book specifically mentions him adding more circular movements, which was maybe a shift from more linear traditional styles.
Adaptation again.
Yeah.
Evolution through individual.
And that leads us right to Ed Parker.
Who learned first from Frank Chow, William's brother, then directly from William Chow himself.
And Parker's role was huge in, well, systematizing it further, popularizing it, and really Americanizing Kenpo. Opening his school in Pasadena in '56 was a big step.
What really stands out to me is his focus on making it practical for modern self-defense. He wasn't just preserving something ancient.
No, he was actively shaping it for contemporary needs. And he formed the International Kenpo Karate Association, the IKA, that same year, '56.
With its crest, the book shows how that evolved too, I-14 and I-15.
Yeah, and the symbolism is layered. You've got the tiger.
Representing earthly strength, right? Physical power, maybe more dominant early on.
And then the dragon for spiritual strength, wisdom, fluidity, qualities you develop with time and, ideally, humility.
It's like a map of the practitioner's journey.
And the circle around them.
That's the life cycle, continuous movement, the flow in Kenpo. The lines inside are supposed to represent the original 18 hand movements, linking back to those Chinese roots.
Honoring the past while moving forward, the colors also mean something, proficiency levels. And the writing.
Kenpo karate law of the fist and the empty hand. Pretty direct.
Ties it all together, even the shape, like a Chinese house roof for shelter, but also...
An executioner's axe? That's striking. Suggests cutting away the non-essential, maybe, in technique and thought.
Could be. So the whole identity reinforces the philosophy. After the history, Parker briefly outlines the three main divisions of practice.
Right. Basic stances, blocks, strikes, kicks.
The fundamentals. Then self-defense, applying those basics realistically.
And finally, freestyle, which sounds more advanced, more spontaneous, adaptive.
A natural learning progression. Then he gets into the relationship of martial arts systems.
Addressing common mix-ups between things like karate, judo, jiu-jitsu. He even shows the different uniforms.
Yeah, I-19A, B, and C. But he clarifies that Kenpo, especially as practiced in Hawaii, the U.S., Europe, it's a more modern term.
It embraces that mix of linear and circular motion and, crucially, adaptability. It's not stuck in one rigid historical box.
Adaptability and evolution really seem central, which flows right into the next part. The art as related to daily living.
Okay, this is where he introduces that alphabet of motion idea.
Yeah, explain that one. It's a neat concept.
Basically, like letters make words and words make sentences. Fundamental martial arts moves are the letters.
You combine these basic moves?
To form more complex sequences like words or sentences of motion. It breaks down something potentially complex into learnable parts.
It's a great analogy. Makes it less daunting. He even compares it to music.
Right. Musical notes as individual moves, high or low targets. I-20A, B, C show that.
And combining notes makes chords.
Which are like the words of motion, short combinations. So mastery isn't just memorizing sequences. It's understanding how to combine the basics creatively.
Really highlights how it all connects. Then he moves to the practical side. Ingredients, stages, and plateaus of learning. What ingredients does he list?
Okay, let's see. Concentration, coordination, mathematical precision.
Mathematical precision. That's specific.
Isn't it? Suggests like geometry of movement, angles, efficiency, then timing, perseverance, and mental discipline.
Makes sense. That precision could be about the exact angle of a block, the optimal distance for a strike, the physics of it.
Yeah. Then he breaks learning into 3 stages. First is primitive.
Right, that's the intellectual stage, just understanding the concepts.
Then mechanical, the physical repetition, drilling it into muscle memory.
And the goal is the spontaneous stage.
Where it becomes instinctive, reacting without conscious thought.
And he stresses that hitting plateaus where you feel stuck is normal.
Yeah, perseverance is key to push through those. It's not always a smooth ride up.
Good reminder for any learning process, really. Then the focus shifts inward to philosophical attainment.
Exploring that mix of Eastern and Western ideas in martial arts.
The emphasis here is on developing internal insight, self-awareness, and that mental discipline we mentioned earlier. It's not just physical.
Right. He talks about how training can build humility, facing physical challenges, pushing your limits.
You learn your capabilities, but also your limitations. He mentions things like fasting, maybe a sweat lodge, but the core idea seems to be about confronting difficulty and building resilience.
And through that, maybe gaining more respect for yourself and others.
Exactly. Knowing your limits helps you respect others' struggles too. It grounds you, which leads into my philosophy of the martial arts.
Here, he really emphasizes individualization, doesn't he? Uses that tailor analogy.
Yeah, like a custom tailor who fits a suit to an individual. The idea is Kenpo principles should be adapted to you, your body, your strengths,
No cookie-cutter approach,
which ties into his concept of no style as the ultimate style.
which sounds contradictory, but it means not being rigidly locked into one set way, right?
Exactly. It's about adaptability, fluidity, responding effectively without being constrained by a specific form.
He uses hammering a nail as an example. You can do it straight, circular, different ways to achieve the same goal.
Right. Illustrations I-41A through D show that. The method can vary, but driving the nail is the point.
So style, he says, is just how an individual applies the system they've learned.
It's your personal expression of the core principles. True mastery isn't just copying, it's internalizing and applying fluidly.
And he adds another crucial ingredient: guts, intestinal fortitude.
Yeah, that mental toughness, illustrated in I-47. Having the skills is one thing, being able to use them under pressure is another.
He briefly touches on formalities and rituals, too. Simple things like calling black belts Mr.
Shows respect for their time and effort, and saluting when entering or leaving the dojo. Small things that build discipline.
Then there's the practical stuff, the belt ranking system.
Right, laid out clearly on page 100. White, yellow, orange, purple, blue, green, brown. With variations, all the way to black belt degrees.
It's structured. He explains how basics like stances, blocks, punches, kicks are grouped for each level. It ensures progressive learning.
And what's the purpose of promoting people through these belts, according to Parker?
Well, mainly motivation. Right. Encourages students to keep learning. But it's also feedback.
Feedback for who?
For both, really. Shows if the teaching is effective and shows where the student might need more work.
A two-way street. Okay, finally we get to preparatory considerations. This is all about mindset and awareness before anything happens.
And the first step is acceptance of danger.
Not being paranoid, but just acknowledging that threats exist.
Exactly. Shifting from just ignoring the possibility, it's foundational for being prepared.
Then comes environmental awareness, being observant.
Constantly. Noticing potential dangers, risky situations, just checking your surroundings regularly. Illustrations I-49 and I-50 show that being aware, gauging distance.
Which leads right into range. How close or far an attacker is massively changes your response, especially if there's a weapon.
Fundamental stuff. He also mentions position, your stance, balance, maneuvers, moving effectively, and targets.
Knowing the vulnerable areas shown on page 107.
And then natural weapons and natural defenses, using your body.
Yeah, pages 108, 109 show fingers as claws, fists as rams, fingertips like swords. Recognizing the tools you always have with you.
He uses that analogy, I-52, I-53, a Christian in Roman times getting a submachine gun.
Right. A powerful weapon is useless if you don't know how to use it. Same with your natural weapons, you need to understand and train them.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive into Parker's first volume, the mental side, what are maybe one or two key takeaways for the learner, someone wanting those efficient insights?
Well, I think that alphabet of motion concept is really powerful. Breaking down complex skills into basics, that applies to learning pretty much anything, not just Kenpo. Makes things feel manageable.
Yeah, I agree. And for me, it's that constant theme of adapting principles, not just rigidly following styles. Parker's whole no style, individual tailoring idea.
It really emphasizes understanding the why behind the what.
Right. And applying it intelligently based on yourself and the situation. That adaptability is useful way beyond martial arts.
Definitely. That individual approach is key.
So here's a final thought to leave everyone with.
Mm-hmm.
Given Parker's focus on individualization and mental discipline, how could understanding your own unique learning style, how you best absorb and apply things, boost your progress in mastering any new skill? Whether it's Kenpo, coding, cooking, whatever. How can you find your best way to hammer that nail? Something to chew on.